party where everyone sews their own outfit, New York City Frocktails is like where the internet meets in real life. For sewists. Everyone came to 2023 New York City Frocktails, showed up and absolutely showed out. It's like a group project where everyone does the assignment. Everyone came glitz and glam for our theme this year. Hi, my name is Robyn Andrea Burgess, aka Styles and Seams, and I'm the host of New York City Frocktails. I was going to use this video to just sort of like talk through my perspective of the event since I planned it. Last Saturday, we hosted New York City Frocktails at a club in New York City, just outside of the Garment District, actually in Times Square. And it was just so beautiful. For the first time we had a theme this year, it was Studio 44 Disco Glamour, because the venue was on 44th Street, just 10 blocks away from the original Studio 54. And honestly, the community just showed up and showed out. There was so much brilliance in the crowd, and it wasn't just the sequins that everyone was wearing. I went into planning the event with a ton of intention, and being a little bit of an outsider from the sewing community because I'm a newer sewist, it allowed me to bring the perspective and the intention of just wanting people to feel seen, to feel welcome, to feel encouraged, to feel motivated, and to feel lifted by the community and the event. We had another one in 2023, and I'll go into that one, another one in 2022, and I'll go into that one, but even more than last year, we just had a diverse outpouring of people in the sewing community, different ages, different races, different genders, sexual orientations, body types. And maybe in part because it took place the first Saturday in October, it was a homecoming. And so we really planned this event to be a space where everyone could just feel supported and uplifted in this sewing craft. And it can be, someone wrote to me after the party and said that sewing can be a hobby that's just absolutely isolating because you're just in your own sewing room, you're huddled over a machine, and you're not really interacting with people unless you're very intentional about it. And as I was going through the response to the party on Sunday morning, I literally was in tears for a couple of hours straight. And I'm getting teary-eyed right now. I was just sort of overwhelmed as I sat there writing posts and resharing stories and just trying to make sure that everyone's voice who contributed to this conversation of New York City Frocktails was uplifted. It just brought me so much pride to be able to plan it. And I figured I'd sit down with you and anyone who wants just a little bit more perspective into the party, who either was there and just kind of wants to know what was going on behind the scenes, or wasn't able to attend this year and kind of wants to know, well, what is a Frocktails? I would share this with you, giving a little bit of the business side of Frocktails, but not really business details, but just sort of what's below the surface? What's that iceberg that's below the water? So I'm going to go into the experience of leading the planning for the past 2 years and a little bit of the future of New York City Frocktails in 2024. And of course, I'm going to be giving you a peek into the party. So Frocktails is a brilliant concept, but I am not the founder of Frocktails in New York City Frocktails, or even the concept of Frocktails. I think it's been celebrated globally for years, and I would love to learn the origins of it. But in New York City specifically, it had previously been a very DIY event, or I'm told. The organizers did a lot of self-catering. They brought the wine, they brought the drinks. They organized it at a peer space, so they did rent a professional space. However, they didn't do so with the thought that people would want to pay a good amount of money for it, and B, that it would be at the scale that it has risen to. So in 2020, the intention, as we were discussing it as a committee, is to be as inclusive as possible by keeping the price really low at $35. Carly, she was organizing it, and we were so motivated to have this party in 2020. We were looking at peer spaces. We were planning in February and March for a party that would take place in May 2020, but I bet you can guess what happened to the party. I had actually volunteered to do sponsor outreach alongside Julie Moreno. And then I wanted to elevate it a little bit. I wanted it to be something that had some pizzazz. And so I kind of started out by designing the logo and doing the branding for the would-be event and really supporting with that sponsor outreach. And so that's, where we sort of put into writing what this goal of New York City Frocktails was. And I have notes because I wrote a whole outline. So yeah. Anyway, then the pandemic hit and we couldn't have Frocktails in 2020 and it was a travesty. Like, I was really holding on to this hope that we would be able to have the party, even though I think it was like, again, late February, early March, just before the pandemic hit. And I was like, no, let's not back out yet. Let's see, people are going to stay home for 2-3 weeks and then we'll be able to go out again. And obviously that did not happen. So that was kind of tragic. And 2021 really wasn't going to be an opportunity to have the Frocktails again either, because we didn't really even have vaccines yet. We were still staying home, and especially people in the sewing community, we were a smaller community, we were nervous, but we were keeping up with weekly meetings and staying connected to each other through New York City Social Hour, which had previously been a monthly in-person event in the Garment District and had transformed during the pandemic to weekly Zoom calls. And I was joining those Zoom calls nearly weekly, and for stretches of time, that was my only kind of human contact, to be honest. But yeah, flash forward, it's 2022, and the idea of Frocktails is just creeping up in my mind again. I know that I wanted to bring it back because I didn't get to have that party that I was hoping I'd be able to have back in 2020. It was still on my mind. And between 2020 and 2022, I had just grown so much in my sewing. I'd grown my personal Instagram following, I'd grown my sewing friends, I'd grown my local sewing friends, my global sewing friends, and I personally wanted to bring it back. But kind of in that moment, there weren't other people who really wanted to do the work. And when I say that, that's before connecting with people. So in April, Carly actually emailed the 2020 committee and said, hey, we have this account. It's not really doing anything. Does anyone want to take over it and take the lead with planning for 2020? I literally raised my hand so quickly. I literally put my hand up, replied to that email and said, yes, I would like to do it. I'm happy to lead. Is anyone else in it with me to do this? And pretty much everyone in the committee just said that they couldn't spare the bandwidth. And honestly, I totally understand that. Planning the event can be a huge, huge, huge burden of work. And especially thinking about it in terms of those DIY ways that was done in 2020, it was going to be a big burden. So I wasn't sure if anyone else was going to join me, but I was like, listen, I'm going to take the account. We're going to do it. Next thing you know, DC Frocktails happens, and Grace, aka Weezer Dreams, she mentions during one of our weekly New York Social Hour calls that, they're having this event, who wants to go? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm from DC, so worst case scenario, I buy a bus ticket or a train ticket, I stay at my sister's place, and it's an affordable opportunity, and it's a way for me to meet other people in the DC area, since I don't really have great connections back to DC since I've been living in New York for so long. So I was like, sure, let's go to the party. What I noticed about DC Frocktails really helped to transform my understanding of what a Frocktails could be, and that's for a number of reasons. First of all, they held it at a true venue. It was this beautiful space near the University of Maryland. They had catering, they had food given out by service staff. They had a drink sponsor handing out really delicious whiskey drinks. They had a DJ and a dance party. They had raffle and they had superlative gifts. And tooting my own horn for a second, I got the fan favorite for my shiny silver dress. I'll probably pop it in here. But it was such a good time overall. And it really just transformed what I thought about Frocktails. And I was like, listen, we have to do this in New York. So literally 2 days after the party, I emailed Carly again and I was like, yes, please hand over the keys to that IG account. And by the next day, I had created a full outline of kind of what needed to be done and a timeline for getting it done. And the outline included an overview of the budget, like what kind of participation we would need, how many people we would want involved, like what type of venue we were looking at, what the ticket price might be based upon some other events, so on and so forth. And then just 2 days after that, I dropped the very first teaser to an audience of only 174 followers on the Frocktails account. My first number one goal for that account was like, hey, we are just such a small community. Let's see how many people really want to come. And to put on an event that I was thinking of, I knew that we needed to try to get at least 50 people involved. And so I said right away, let's grow the IG account to 300 people. But yeah, just to the high level, the vision for the event was somewhat brought out of that DC Frocktails vision, but I wanted it to be, this isn't a but, because this is totally DC Frocktails. I also wanted it to be very diverse. It was going to be led by a Black woman, myself, and so it wouldn't have those challenges that are sometimes witnessed by some other events in the sewing community that just feels like it's only reserved for white women. And honestly, that's just the truth of it. It was going to be diverse, not just for Black people, but for people of all colors. Number two, New York City is a pull. Like, let me not fail to acknowledge the fact that people want to come to New York City and want to come to the garment district. So right away I was like, okay, let's promote New York City as an appeal as much as our party. And let's be humble in the fact that like people are coming to our party and they're coming to the community, but they're also coming to just experience what New York City has to offer sewists. And then the third thing, and this is just like one change that we had from DC Frocktails, and this is something that we eventually discussed, is that like, let's kind of do away with this concept of superlatives and make it just where everyone is the winner. So instead of having superlatives and someone is like best dressed or vote for this, let's just make it as egalitarian as possible. And let's think about everything that we do for this event, making it as open, inclusive, and egalitarian as possible. Focus, focus. Okay. Where do we leave off? So after I announced Frocktails to the community, and we had like a ton of likes on that first post, that was just the teaser. It literally just said New York City Frocktails this fall, who wants to join? I managed to find a couple other people who were down to help me plan. So Anna Potter reached out, aka Tarlatan. I never say her name right, oh my God. Anna reached out, and so did Allie. Allie Sews Stuff reached out, and we had a little community. I knew that it made most sense to keep the committee really small and tight, but we had enough that we could start discussing what we wanted to accomplish and where we wanted to accomplish it. And I kept doing little teasers to get people involved, but the number one thing that we needed to do was to like find a venue and make sure that we could afford it. And so I went back to Pier Space, and we wanted to stay as close as possible to the garment district so people could get their hotel, they could get their party in. And also the garment district is like right by all the modes of transportation. So we found the venue, and I literally just put down my money. It was $3,240 of my own money credit card to sponsor and secure the venue. But obviously that's risky. And so what we did is we launched a pre-sale in order to just cover the debt that we'd already created, make sure that there was like ample interest, not oversell what we couldn't accomplish in terms of other features of the event, and just start creating the buzz for it. So we ended up creating a pre-sale for 40 tickets at our $100 price point, and that was able to cover the venue and at least give us something to go on for any other marketing expenses or things that we might need to pay for the event. And my God, was there a response. We sold out those 40 tickets in 30 minutes. That like baffled me and made me so excited. It was thrilling, to be honest. But yeah, 40 tickets sold out in 30 minutes. Everyone was like, oh my God, I missed tickets. I really want to come. It built the buzz. And later when we put another 100 tickets on sale, it sold out in 24 hours. So we knew that we had something there, and we were now at 140 guests. That was at our limit for the space, but I had talked to the venue and I was like, well, you have this other side of the venue. if we can be bigger, like how much will it cost to be bigger? And so I kind of knew already that it was possible if we sold out, if we maxed out and we could make our budget for all the expenses, we could expand. And we ended up expanding. There was more demand for it. So I guess this is like a good moment to just like pause and take a step back. So I've now at this point, it's summer 2022. I have put down thousands of dollars of my money for this party. I am absolutely baffled and delighted that the sewing community trusts me as the organizer of this. And to be honest, like I've done a lot of event planning, and so like I knew what I was doing, but like y'all didn't know that I knew what I was doing. So I gotta hand it to y'all who just came out of the woodwork like, yes, this is gonna happen. We believe that she can accomplish that. But also like personally, when I started planning New York City Frocktails, like I was feeling so run down and burnt out at work. Like, I can't even go into all of it, but these are I'm gonna like read at my notes because like this is what I was feeling. Like, one, selling out the event just reminded me like, oh, she's good at this marketing thing. And it's like, I had the audacity to take control of it. Who is she? But like, I was then the director of retention at a subscription e-commerce business. And New York City Frocktails was a passion project. It was something that allowed me to have ownership of something. When I had taken a pause for financial reasons from my own personal entrepreneurship and go back to working with people, it's like, okay, now she has ownership of something again. But again, I've planned a lot of parties. I went to Columbia University, and while I was there, I joined, I did a lot of clubs. Actually, I fell in love with event planning and I fell in love with marketing through throwing parties. First for the Black Students Organization, and then I was sort of like recruited to join a student council group, and I ended up being the vice president of campus life for Columbia College, which basically just means that I planned the parties that bring the community together. So these were parties for like 4,000 people. These were parties that could have a budget over $100,000. And then my first job out of college was actually a balance between the digital marketing side of things, membership development, and events planning at an arts organization at Park Avenue Armory. And then I would always host parties and throw stuff for the alumni community. I continued with Columbia and did the Columbia College Young Alumni for years. And anyway, we're getting aside, but the point is that work was breaking my soul, but this reminded me that I have a purpose, that like sewing for me is more than just sitting behind the sewing machine. It's gathering with other people who sew. And when I ended up leaving my job last summer in July, Frocktails then sort of filled that gap of like, okay, I can put my passion into something that makes my heart feel full, that makes me feel like I'm doing something that's adding positive value to the world. Because listen, in marketing, you don't always feel like you're adding positive value to the world. For 2022, everything was pretty much piecemeal because we didn't want to overextend ourselves or create too much financial risk. The caterer was separate. It made it so that we could like have the flexibility to order really, really close to the event. I mean, within like 2 weeks of the event. And it also was just more work. Like Anna physically had to go to pick up the speakers and drive and pick them up because the venue didn't come equipped with speakers. So like we ordered speakers, she picked them up, brought them to the venue. Our DJ helped us set them up while we were there. That's why we were running around like our heads were cut off. And all the while we're putting all this work in, we know that we're doing a good job, but like the Fire Festival documentary is just like playing in the back of my head. But thank God it was a phenomenal party. Like if I had to rate the different aspects of the party, like I wrote down my ratings. Like number one, the crowd, 10 out of 10. No notes. The enthusiasm was through the roof, like both before the party and during the party. And honestly, like shouts out to everyone who offered to be a volunteer for the party, like, and help us put it together the day of, because it was so piecemeal. We needed people to help us like put up decor and like, honestly, it was mostly decor. Put up decor, set up the raffle tickets, set up the like conversation starter, set up the bingo card, work the front desk, get people where they needed to go and help us out. And our volunteers like absolutely helped with that. Now I'm going to say the next one, location, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 because It was in the Garment District, which was a major improvement over past instances of New York City Frocktails, but y'all, it was hot. It was hot in there. Not all of the air conditioners functioned, and even though it was October, it was this really humid day, so 7 out of 10 for venue. Aesthetic, honestly, 6 out of 10. I wanted it to be a lot cuter, but it was just this like white proscenium hall, this white gallery space, and it didn't add a lot to the vibe or do anything to help us create a vibe. Food and drink, 7 out of 10. Everything was delicious. The cups were a little small and plastic. I don't like that. And and the caterer arrived late, which gave me a crazy headache. I was stressed. But just lastly, like workload, like 3 out of 10. It was so much work. I've already mentioned setup and takedown, which is only a small piece of it, but like receiving packages for me was stressful. We ended up losing one package from a sponsor, and they gracefully, sent another one. But between managing the caterer, managing all of the different elements that went into it, ordering all of the supplies, and honestly, more than anything, paying very close attention to the budget, it was a lot of work. I had to crunch the numbers over and over again to make sure that we weren't going out of pocket, because though we were charging $100 for tickets, we were so close on budget the entire way, so much that like I had to negotiate down that caterer at the last minute and just like not argue with them, but put my foot down and say, listen, this is our budget. This is an all-inclusive budget. Can you do it? Do what you can do within that budget. So ultimately, like 2022 was a huge success, and even though it was a ton of work, I was filled with joy. And so immediately I was like, okay, let's do this again. And immediately the community was like, let's do this again. And the number of followers that we got immediately following New York City Frocktails 2022 is just testament to the fact that like people really wanted this. And they wanted to bring their friends back. And so I had a lot more confidence going into 2023, but it was going to be hard work all over again. Am I in focus? Focus? Hopefully. Focus on me. So that brings us to 2023. Y'all, we had some ambitious goals. Like, number one, we wanted to find a better venue. We wanted a more all-inclusive experience that would reduce the stress and workload, and also just had like a much better aesthetic, better decor. We wanted it to like do something for us. Also, another goal is that we wanted to match demand. We sold out in 2022, and there were people still looking for tickets, and then we had a wish list and we had a couple more available, but just by telling people so early that we had sold out, we kind of pushed people away, and we didn't want to do that. We wanted to be able to match the demand that was coming to us. And then thirdly, we wanted to find some sponsors who would offset the cost of the event so that, and I'm gonna keep it real with you, we could at least get minimum wage for all of our efforts. Which I don't understand is that Frocktails is for the passion, but it's not sustainable to be able to throw these year after year if it just completely depletes us emotionally, physically, and financially. And I'll get into more of that later, but a big goal was to bring on some sponsors who would contribute some monetary amount or offset costs in some way. One thing that we added for 2023 was a theme. I don't know why we didn't even consider a theme in 2022. I think it's because we wanted people to be able to just bring their full selves, and we didn't want to like dictate what they were wearing at all. But a theme just helps everyone be more in sync. It gives people inspiration for what they're going to look for. It sort of focuses their energy. Instead of like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to make for Frocktails, you can be like, oh my God, let me research our theme. And so Studio 54, Disco Glamour. And like I said before, well, it's kind of like I said before, but it's a total coincidence that we found a basement party, a basement venue on 44th Street, just 10 blocks from the original Studio 54. And yes, I love a pun, so yes, I did have to bring that into the branding of the event. But to be honest, the idea for having a theme and then separately for a disco theme really came from a font. See, I was putting together some like aesthetic inspiration for what we do with like decor and the sponsorship deck, and I was like, ooh, that font is groovy. Ooh, groovy. Maybe if we had a disco theme, we could use that groovy font. Oh, okay. And so then I just started plucking references. I plucked Cher and Diana Ross and Michael Jackson and the Bee Gees, and I was like, oh, this has legs to it. And so, of course, I didn't choose it all by myself, but I did go to like Grace and Carol and the New York Social Hour community, and I was like, A, should we have a theme? And B, should this be the theme? Yes, yes. And honestly, we even had the theme before the committee was involved, but I made sure that they had buy-in. So in terms of our committee, this year, Frocktails was organized by me, and also Allie Sew Stuff came back again for another year, and Barry Diamond, aka Martha, and Grace came to help. But honestly, from the beginning, no one was ready to start when I was ready to start. I had left 2022 really wanting to have quarterly events, and I'll come back to that later. But when it came to like revving up for the sponsorship deck and getting some of these like ambitious goals done, the planning for Frocktails 2023 started in February. February 1st, I reached out to last year's committee and I was like, hey guys, hope you're well. Are you interested in helping again? And honestly, neither of them were ready to commit. And honestly, I can't blame them because like the economy was kind of in a free fall back in February. I was slightly kind of protected from that in that I was quasi working for myself, quasi fun employed, quasi doing my own thing at the moment. But inflation was up. People were losing their jobs left and right. The economy was in a tailspin. And people just didn't really know where they were going to be months from then. So no one committed right away. And honestly, just hearing that no one was ready to commit slowed me down. And so I didn't really start ramping up until April. And then I started creating the sponsorship deck. So the committee that we had this year again was me, and then Martha, who had flown back from Scotland to attend Frocktails last year, raised her hand and was like, I would like to help you do it. And then Allie came back to the fold, and then Grace, who wasn't available to help in 2022, she raised her hand to help out. And we had a nice little committee of people who were going to help us to plan this. So planning for 2023 actually was a lot more condensed than it was last year. Yes, I made the sponsorship deck back in April, but it didn't go out to anyone. And I didn't send the first teaser until June 27th. I felt personally like we were a little bit behind the 8 ball this year, but honestly, because we had so much pre-planning done and because, we were following our template, we only released tickets 2 weeks later than last year. And when I tell you that people were anxious to find out when Frocktails were going to be, I was getting so many DMs from people like, I need to book my plane tickets. When are Frocktails going to be out? I need to plan my whole event. When are Frocktails going to be out? And so we ended up keeping it pretty consistent with last year and doing it the first Saturday in October. And maybe, not saying for sure, but maybe that will be our committed time year after year. But it was a lot easier this time around. From last year, I had both the budget estimates and the actuals that we spent, which let me feel a lot more confident in making decisions. Y'all, that spreadsheet was locked down. The formulas were in place. I was able to rework the formulas and play with the numbers to figure out what we were working with. The Instagram audience had grown, so I knew the audience was there. And that gave me a lot more confidence for one of those ambitious goals of just like making it a lot more easy on us by having an all-inclusive venue. And listen, when we signed AdBlue Midtown, we had to go all in with the capacity, give them a number of how many people would attend, what the food and the drink prices were going to be. And I knew that we wouldn't really be able to negotiate as needed. And so we had other fixed costs for the event. We had the photographer and the DJ who we brought back from last year because they were phenomenal. The decor and marketing costs wouldn't be too high because like it doesn't take much to market this. It's like we have a domain and then y'all come through. And the decor, like the venue was like already spot on. I had been to parties at the venue a couple of times and I was like, this is going to be the look and feel that we want. And it took a little time to get back to me originally and for us to get the place locked down. But we were able to do it. We really wanted to improve the aesthetic of the party. And so we knew we wanted a better photo backdrop. We knew we wanted cuter swag bags. We had to get in there for a venue minimum and food and drink costs that we could do within the budget of being consistent with charging $100 per ticket. And I didn't want to raise the prices at all because like we just want to be as inclusive as possible. And like, yes, $100 isn't easy for everyone to afford, but I think the value was really there because like, where else can you go in New York? Where else can you go out in New York City and get music, get drinks included, get food included, get a photographer, DJ, like have a whole vibe for $100? Nowhere. You can't even go out to dinner for $100 these days. And so when after the party, everyone was like, New York City Frocktails owes me nothing. That's what so many people said. I was like, oh, thank God we did our job. Oh, thank God. Like people enjoyed it. Because honestly, that was the biggest fear. Going back to that Fire Festival fear that I think many event organizers have. Like, I don't want people showing up and then getting like a white bread with slices of cheese. You know, I didn't want people to feel like they showed up and they didn't get their money's worth. Honestly, my worries the day before the party was that like maybe we were like holding something back from guests by committing to being able to make minimum wage for ourselves. And I was like, maybe we need to do more. Like I spent the last couple of days just sort of a little bit panicked, like maybe we need more food or maybe we need more photo props or maybe we need to put more in the gift bags. It's that fear of like not being enough that like honestly is crippling. But at the party, I literally paused at 8 p.m. and I was like, oh my God, there's 2 hours left. This room is packed. People are dancing, people are drinking, people are eating, people are having a good time, they're hugging, they're loving each other, and there's 2 more hours of this. And I couldn't believe that like everyone was like on a vibe already. And I have to say like this year, I was actually able to enjoy the party. Like, yes, I was running around with my watch, being a timekeeper, making sure that we were getting the service that we deserved from the venue, making sure that we were going to like get through the party elements on the right times. We were going to hit our marks. We were going to get our fashion show. We were going to get the DJ playing the right vibe of music at the right time, making sure the lighting was good, asking the committee to help with different aspects of the party, like recruiting people and bringing people into the space, handing out extra drink tickets at the end of the night, relieving Megan from the door so that she could, you know, have a few minutes in the space. Just, I was running around, but I was still able to like enjoy the party this year. And I think that's honestly the most mind-numbing thing as an event organizer, that you actually get to enjoy it. But listen, y'all, the community invested so much money and time into this party that wasn't just the tickets. There was someone who came, Lauren Deckard. She spent literally more than 60 hours hand sewing paillettes onto her pants. She looked absolutely phenomenal. Julian sold his like golden masterpiece on Instagram and TikTok lives for over 2 more months, hyping everyone that was going to attend the party. And the men who sewed really showed up and did their thing. Listen, the party was 97% women last year, I think by count. And I made a subtle but concerted effort to try to recruit more men into the party and make them feel welcome and not just husbands. And we had some phenomenal men in the crowd. A couple more outfits to point out. Jack sews. Evidently, he hand-beaded his full set. He works in the theater district and literally told me that he just walked over from across the street to come to the party. Got dressed at work and came over from across the street to the party. And then Zach talked about his whole process on his Instagram stories, and he had a huge skill jump, he said, to draft and sew a tailored suit for himself, and it had incredible pattern matching. And so like, it wasn't just the party itself, it's that people really just invested in being a part of the space. Returning from last year, there were people that came from literally all over. Terrence flew in from Dallas again. Lindsay returned from Utah. There were makers who were in there from Canada and from France. Like, Frocktails is international, y'all. New York City Frocktails pulls that international crowd. A few people messaged a couple of days before the party, and they were just like really worried and sort of overwhelmed by the whole experience. And I was just like, listen, if you're gonna come, like, and I was just like, listen, wear what you have. Like, we want to see you more than your outfit. I think like Frocktails, New York City Frocktails can be a little bit of a frenzy, especially with having the theme of people feeling like they needed to fit in. But honestly, like, we wanted you to come as you are, as your full self. There were other people who like really wanted to come and couldn't get a ticket because, y'all, we sold out. When I said we sold out, we locked down that. Mostly because we had a limited number of sponsor bags, but then also because, excuse me, but then also because like more than 250 would have just been too much for us. But people were able to transfer and get last minute tickets. The tickets were still out there. Y'all, we made tickets non-refundable because our money was already down with the venue. And if we sold you a ticket and then you ask for your money back, it just means that like, I then have to reach in my pocket and pay your way because it's already committed. And so they're not refundable, but they were transferable. And so we were helping people to transfer their tickets up until the last minute. And yeah, so many of those people who had DM'd me, they were worried and said that they weren't going to come. They still came and they showed up and they said they were so happy for having come. And that just like fills my heart with joy. And after the party, like, we were able to break it down pretty quickly. I was able to go out with a couple people who were in from out of town. And by 11 p.m., I checked Instagram and there were over 100 story mentions of New York City Frocktails. And it was just incredible. It was literally, again, I'm trying not to tear up again, but like, I was so happy. I was completely exhausted, but I spent the entire next day reposting, elevating, sharing, and making sure that the community was seen, making sure that everyone who showed up knew that we appreciated their presence there. As I was literally crying tears of joy, relief, release, and just feeling so fulfilled by bringing so many of these people together. I'm going to read something. I'm going to read a couple of these posts that people sent because they honestly moved me so much. E.B. Stitch wrote, "This year, Frocktails has been on our calendar for months as the most important outing for me to attend postpartum. Sometimes I feel like sewing exists only in my basement, on the internet, and in my wallet. LOL. But Frocktails reminds me that a bunch of other people love this too, and it's really fun to get together and celebrate that. I feel so fortunate to have access to a place that expands my friendships and my inspiration for another year of sewing." Sewn by Tammy wrote, "I have never been in a space filled with so much talent in my life." So much facts. Everybody brought so much talent to the party. And Crafted by Anita wrote, "I had never sewn a jumpsuit before, but when I snagged a ticket and found out the theme was disco, I knew I had to push myself, and I'm so proud of it. And I even met the jumpsuit pattern designer, Ella, of Handmade Millennial. I left the night feeling so inspired by all the outfits I saw. Can't wait to get started on my next project." Y'all, so happy. Yes, I think the theme definitely helped, but like, even just all of us being a part of this like internet sewing community come to real life, we were so in unison and we were flowing through the same vibe. And the videos of everyone just like partying together and singing to Gloria Gaynor or Last Dance at the top of our voices at the end of the night, like, so stunning. We left no crumbs. We reserved no energy. We left it all out on the dance floor by 10 p.m. It was a vibe, y'all. It was a vibe. So yeah, maybe you're here, you've been listening to all of this history, wondering what's going on with Frocktails in 2024 because I gave you that little bit of teaser. Well, Now's the time. Let's talk about 2024. Obviously, I want to do this again, right? I have some goals. Number one, create a space to celebrate the joy of sewing. Number two, create a space for people to bring their full selves. Number three, connect talent, develop the community, and strengthen individual friendships from the digital to the personal. Number four, inspire new sewists to push their sewing skills and feel welcome in this space alongside veterans. Number five, bridge lines of division by race, gender, age, sexual orientation, skill level, geography, politics, or literally any other form of division. And I want to accomplish this in a couple of ways. One, through quarterly events at a smaller scale, think like a brunch party or a cultural meetup or a picnic, maybe a shopping trip. And I wanted to make this a reality in 2023, but honestly, time and investment got in the way. I made calls to venues for a winter brunch. I looked into permits for a summer picnic. It came down to feeling like I was doing it alone and there wasn't anyone asking for it. But I've read your comments, I see the posts, I see the FOMO, I see the interest, and I believe this is something that people want. Like, please let me know in the comments below, is this something that you want? Is this a community that you need? Is this a community that you want to participate in? So let me know in the comments below if this is something that you want, but there's another way that you can let me know, and that's what I also want to introduce through this video. In order to meet this demand for this community of over 250 people, and even to maybe potentially to expand it, we need to be able to expand our capacity. And the only way we can do that is if we make this less of a seasonal event and more of an ongoing membership community. Because the budget for Frocktails that we have right now and all of the amazing value that you get out of the party, it doesn't leave enough to have the capacity to support more people or hire support for any of the individualized labor. And I just want to give you a concept of the scale. Allie, God bless her, she packed all 250 of those swag bags by herself, each of which contain more than 5 items. Like, it took hours and hours and hours, and some of us offered to help her. We all offered to help her, but like, we're a distributed team, and so it just really didn't make practical sense for us to go there and help physically pack those bags with her. Another thing, 10% of the ticket buyers requested a ticket transfer, and I had to process those all manually. It's labor, and as we grow in scale, 10% grows as well. And then lastly, like, volunteers, like, y'all, volunteers create work. With the exception of a really dedicated and focused planning committee, like communication and admin, and you don't want to miss any part of the party, like, it's hard to have volunteers help you with things because you have to do so much to organize for them and to plan to create capacity for them. We hired someone to work the door at Frocktails this year, one, because we didn't want anyone to miss parts of the party, but then also it's just a lot easier to give one person a clear directive of the task and mission and get them into the fold. So one part of why we are hopefully creating a membership community from New York City Frocktails that will be lasting for the year is to meet that demand. And secondly, to highlight small businesses. Like, our sponsors donated gifts, but for the most part, we don't ask them to make a financial contribution. Thank God we were able to receive some. But one, it takes a lot of admin effort to coordinate getting that gift out to the community on our end. But on the sponsor's end, like, 250 swag bags is a huge commitment. Sponsoring 250 drinks could be a huge commitment. Sponsoring any element of our event when we have this many people, it's a huge commitment, and it's not something that small businesses within our community can really support. And so we need to have some way that we can balance between having large, big budget sponsors and having small sponsors who don't have the capacity for that. We want to be able to create value for people in the New York City Frocktails community, whether they're local, whether they're national, or whether they're global. And again, we've seen people coming to New York City Frocktails from all over. I have to do the numbers on how many people are local, but we want to support people at all levels. And so yes, we want to create a membership community, and it's going to have some benefits. I won't go into details for all of them because you can go to the link below and the link in our description. It is buymeacoffee.com/New York City Frocktails to see all of the different membership benefits of joining the New York City Frocktails community. But it's going to give you potentially access to, well, honestly, the number one thing that people want is early access to ticket sales. And because, y'all, we sold out for New York City Frocktails 2023, 60 tickets in 3 minutes. I forgot to mention that. 60 tickets in 3 minutes. It was bananas, y'all. Bananas. So early access to more events, an ongoing monthly newsletter of arts and culture and sewing culture events that we have within New York City and beyond. But it really, really, really helps us to join this membership community. So please go and check out the benefits, and let me tell you more about what it's going to do. One, it de-risks the investment so that we can create without fear. As the events get bigger, the venue deposits get bigger, and I love y'all, but I can't put all of that on my personal credit card without knowing for a fact we're going to be able to support it through the event. It also creates some working capital so that we can invest in the programming before tickets go on sale. We aren't able to pre-purchase anything until we sell tickets, and thankfully we sell early, but it does enable us to have smaller events at a different scale by having a little bit of cash in the bank in order to do that. It makes New York City Frocktails less seasonal. Frocktails is a year-round commitment of work for anyone who's hosting it, but it enables me to work with the sponsors months in advance while honestly receiving some compensation for the work that goes into it. It enables me to get close to something like a living wage. I live in New York City. I've said many times the rent is too damn high. It's really high here. And I'm a full-time entrepreneur, and so any minute that I pour into New York City Frocktails is a minute that I can't give to a paid consulting client. And I believe that our community needs this, but I also know that I have to eat and be able to pay my rent. And I want to be able to do more, but it's not sustainable if it doesn't support itself. Honestly, I personally spent about 150 hours to make Frocktails in 2022. And thankfully, because we had so much of the thinking work done already, it took less time, but personally me, about 100 hours in 2023. And this is real work. And again, I'm not the only one who participated. Martha, Allie, Grace, they all poured their hours of work into it as well. And so it just helps to support the effort and make the community what it wants to be. So I'm going to leave that. I do have some questions for the community that I think I'm going to be asking in the future, like how do we make sure the event is inclusive as possible? How do we support people in the spaces that they already exist? How do we make it so people can interact with one another as much as possible? But ultimately, this is the closing. I really hope that New York City Frocktails helped you to feel seen, to feel celebrated, to feel welcome, to feel motivated, to feel inspired. I hope that we can continue to elevate diverse makers, whether they're different ages or races or sexes or genders or sexual orientations, body types. I hope that New York City Frocktails will always be a homecoming for the sewing community, and I hope to see you again in 2024. If you're excited about New York City Frocktails, please check out buymeacoffee.com/New York City Frocktails to think about becoming a member or even just make a one-time contribution to support this work. And if you're here on my channel, please like and subscribe to my videos where I make videos about sewing content and the sewing community. Thank you so much for joining me for this lengthy rundown of New York City Frocktails, and I hope to see you again soon.